Look, I'd like to start by kicking off today and talking about the perspective of what is location intelligence and why do businesses have a need for location intelligence, and in particular how they go about using cloud-based location intelligence platforms. I might throw to you, Tim, just to kick us off and give us a good perspective on what you see location intelligence is and who's using it.
Thanks, Pete. Well, I think the key for me around location intelligence is that it's about insight. So that's insight that informs location strategy and also insight that informs site level decision making. So the sorts of data that gets considered through that is obviously your population or demographic data, it's point of interest data, customer data, retail location data. And so blending that together through a spatial analytics tool becomes really important. They're quite disparate data sets, but by blending them together, some key insights can be teased out of that data that then informs the strategy and informs the site level location decision making. In terms of who's using it, it's changing dramatically. I think this sort of field 10 years ago was really the domain of the very well-financed global groups who could invest in in-house platforms and some of that old heavy software, the spatial analytics software that we're probably all familiar with. But with cloud computing, with big data, and with the rapid development in sort of cloud-based software that enables much simpler access into this data, we're now seeing that many more businesses are starting to use location intelligence to inform their strategy and their site level decision making, and not just in Western markets either. And it's great to have Subhashish and Sean and Simon here on this call, but we're seeing a very substantial growth in the uptake of location intelligence processes and tools within some quite disparate markets across the globe.
Yeah, it's really a very exciting time, isn't it? That in the past this was very specialised and very niche, and suddenly now more and more businesses have access to this data and insight to really drive their location decisions. But what do we throw to perhaps you, Simon? It'd be great to see what you're seeing on the ground in the Middle East and the kinds of businesses that are benefiting from access to location intelligence.
Well, I suppose just to sort of pick up from Tim's point on insights and strategy and site finding, there's kind of an extra use case here, perhaps, given the characteristics of this region. So this region, we have big groups, multi-brands, multi-geographies. Network planning is not a particularly well-defined role. So sometimes it's managed by marketing, sometimes it's managed by accounts. It's not as well defined as it is in mature markets. And also, of course, we've got rapid growth, not just rapid growth in population and demographics, but rapid growth in the number of brands and in sort of international brand intensity. So what that really means in this region, that in addition to Tim's comments on strategy and site findings, also a really useful tool for managing even your existing network as well as future ones. And in that regard, when we've got multi-geography, multi-platforms, huge groups, the new GapMap Connect app sort of really helps and contributes in that regard as well in this region.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And look, I'm sure, we're seeing that increasingly across a lot of regions here now where people are getting, multiple brands or multiple countries and that need to be able to understand both their existing network, but also, where they can grow. Sean, I'd be interested, I mean, obviously there's been rapid growth in Vietnam and Asia more broadly. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing around the kinds of businesses that might be using location intelligence?
Sure. I mean, there's very little to add to what Tim and Simon just said. I think I'll take a different spin on it. As you can see, we focus a lot on franchising throughout Asia. We're based in Vietnam, but we cover many parts of Asia. And you can see that, a lot of our clients tend to be in food and beverage, right? It's very, very common. And it never gets old, right? Even though every country you go to, there's plenty of food and beverage. There are plenty of competitors. But the reality is many food and beverage businesses want to continue to expand. New concepts come up all the time, etc. And you can say the same things about retail. You can say the same things about education and training. as well as many different types of services, right? So again, it's always a competitive marketplace, and maybe that's where I want to kind of add a little bit to it. I think, in the West, in Australia, in the US, and many other parts of Europe, for example, there is a lot of data, and there's a lot of intelligence put into analyzing where we should grow the business, how we should grow the business, when we should grow the business. That data is much less clear in this part of the world, in the Asia part of the world where I operate. And having the need to accurate, precise data so that you can really drill down and target market your consumers, whoever they are in whatever industries they are, is really critical, right? And I think that's today, some of the groups get that, but there's a bigger opportunity to bring a lot more businesses on board that will benefit from location intelligence.
Yeah, that's great, Sean. And you mentioned obviously there's franchisor and franchisee. Do you see that both organizations have a need for location intelligence, and does it help them kind of work together to really enter and grow markets?
Yeah, they both have a specific need for sure. As you probably know, some franchisees are much bigger than the franchisor. So they in fact can, if they wanted to, purchase the original franchisor, regardless of where the franchisor is. And I know that's very true in MENA, it's true in India, it's true all over the world, right? So I think that's one component of it. And of course, one of the key businesses when you are in the franchising sector is, while there are many criteria to success, one of the biggest criteria to success is picking an optimal location, right? Because if you were to have 10 stores in a network and you pick 2 wrong locations, that can really ruin your P&L. That can make a very good business turn into a very average or even underperforming business, right? And so franchisees have a need to make sure that they're growing the network in the most optimal, efficient way. And then also franchisors, because what happens is when franchisees need to select locations, they always inevitably need the approval of the franchisors. And when franchisors have this information at their ready hands, then they can make a decision very fast, and the acquisition of that location can go very quickly, which is very important in Asia, and I assume in many other parts of the world, because there's a lot of competition vying for these optimal places, and you have to be ready. You have to make quick decisions, but you also want the data to show that you're making the right choices as well.
Yeah, and certainly having both parties looking at the same data helps to speed that process up and help them win the best locations.